Thanks for joining me on episode 1214 of the Inspired Stewardship Podcast.
I'm Dominic Dom Braidman, and I challenge you to invest in yourself, invest in others, develop your influence, and impact the world by using your time, your talent, and your treasures to live out your calling. Having the ability to improve consistently over time is key, and one way to be inspired to do that is to listen to this, the Inspired Stewardship Podcast with my good friend, Mr. S&M himself, the sensational and the magnificent Scott Mater.
But the truth is, when you think of things as a scarce resource, you have a tendency to look for instant gratification. You have a tendency to spend more than you have or to use more than you've got because you figure this is all I'm ever going to get anyway, so I might as well just live in the moment. It's that YOLO kind of expression taken to an extreme.
Welcome and thank you for joining us on the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. If you truly desire to become the person who God wants you to be, then you must learn to use your time, your talent, and your treasures for your true calling. In the Inspired Stewardship Podcast, you will learn to invest in yourself, invest in others, and develop your influence so that you can impact the world.
In today's episode about impacting the world through stewarding your talent, I talk with you about what a scarcity mindset is. I talk about how this affects more than just our money, but also our time. And I share 5 signs that you may have a scarcity mindset.
You've heard me talk about developing your talent, and one of the best ways to do that is through books. But if you're like most people today, it's hard to find the time to read. And that's why today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Go to inspiredstewardship.com/audible to sign up, and you can get a 30-day free trial. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from, and you can pick one and listen your way to developing your talents via Audible. That's inspiredstewardship.com/audible to get your free trial and listen to great books the same way you're listening to this podcast.
There are times that we all feel like we just don't have enough. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough energy. We don't have enough bandwidth. Whatever it is, we use that language of not enough. Oftentimes we think about scarcity first in terms of money, but the truth is, I think often we have that mindset more around time even than we do about money. But it affects other things too. It can affect our views on relationships, health, intelligence, judgment, willpower, all of these areas of our life because it is a mindset. It's a view of how we look at the world. And scarcity is one that I think often gets deeply embedded in us. This idea that there's only so much, quote, pie in the world. And if somebody else gets a slice of pie, it means I can't get my slice. There's this feeling that gets in there of there's never enough of anything to go around. It affects all areas of our life. It tends to get into our mindset and make us begin to look at things in a very competitive and a very often hoarding kind of way. We want to hold on to everything that we have. We want to not let others in because that's risky. It might cause us to lose what little bit we already have. There's some mindsets and symbols and signs that come up time and time again that might show that you have that kind of mindset, that you're looking at the world in a scarcity kind of point of view. The first one is, I've talked before about the P's of permanent, pervasive, and personal. That permanent mindset, this idea that when good things happen or when bad things happen, that's always the way it is. It is the way it is. It will always be this way. It's permanent. It sticks there forever. And especially whenever you tend to view the negative things that way, when you tend to look at bad things as permanent, that is when we begin to take on this scarcity mindset. The truth is, nothing is truly permanent. Nothing lasts forever. Good or bad, it doesn't matter. There's nothing in this world that truly is 100% permanent and will last without any sort of input of energy, without any sort of input in time, that will last forever. It just doesn't exist. The second mindset or symbol or thing that you may observe that shows that you're having that scarcity mindset is the language we use. I've talked before about how important it is to be very careful in the words that we use to describe the things we do. But if you start using words like, I'm not smart enough, I don't have enough money, I can't do this, I don't have enough time, I'll have to go without, because they've got it, I can't. You have those feelings and those languages around what others can and do and what you can't do. That's what we would call a victim mindset. Often is a symbol of a scarcity mindset. By the way, I'm not talking about having that come into your head from time to time. I'm not talking about having a bad day and maybe just being a little down for a moment. That is perfectly normal. Everyone has those moments in time from time to time. I'm talking about when it becomes a pattern, when it becomes all of the time. That's the pervasive sort of part of what I call the 3 Ps. The third, when you begin to find yourself envious or jealous of others, when you're constantly looking at what others have and wanting it yourself, when you feel like you don't get it, you don't deserve it, but others have all of the wins, all of the nice stuff in life. That feeling, without having a feeling of gratitude, tends to lead to a scarcity mindset. The fourth, similar to that, when you're not able or willing to be generous, when you find yourself constantly not giving to others, not serving others, not doing anything to help others, but it's all focused on what's in it for me. What can you get out of the situation? Whenever you find yourself with that mindset, it often comes from a scarcity mindset. And last, overindulgence. This one is ironic because you would think if you have a scarce mindset, you can't possibly overindulge. You can't use too much if you think there's not enough. But the truth is, when you think of things as a scarce resource, you have a tendency to look for instant gratification. You have a tendency to spend more than you have or to use more than you've got because you figure this is all I'm ever going to get anyway, so I might as well just live in the moment. It's that YOLO kind of expression taken to an extreme. And all of these signs can lead to the idea that you have that mindset that means that you're not looking at the world as one of abundance, but rather one of scarcity, one where there's never enough to go around. And because it is a mindset, this is something that you can work on and you can change and you can reprogram in your life if you choose to. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to the Inspired Stewardship Podcast. As a subscriber and listener, we challenge you to not just sit back and passively listen, but act on what you've heard and find a way to live your calling. If you like this episode on the stewardship of talent, you can go over to inspiredstewardship.com/talent and sign up for our 5-week series on the stewardship of talent. Or if you're in the U.S., you can text 44222 talent tips. That's talent tips to 44222 and get those tips. Until next time, invest your time, your talent, and your treasures. Develop your influence and impact the world.